morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters for Anfield Index. Bit of a pleasant surprise, this one. Probably not what many expected when you go away to an unbeaten side in the Premier League. But there's things to talk about. Not one of great beauty, but one of a great result. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about things off the field. And we'll talk about this coming week with the FA Cup and the run of fixtures we have coming up. I'm joined as ever by the renowned and the respected David Lynch. And David, we're going to get straight into this Sunderland game. A weird one, but one that you win 3 points in. And you tweeted this afterwards to say, a crucial win for our top four hopes and deserved to. They dealt with Sunderland's physicality in a way that has looked beyond them for most of the season and created enough to win it in open play despite doing so from a set piece. Sunderland's first home loss of 25-26. I mean, it's never going to be remembered as a classic, but there were some positives from last night as well as the result.
Oh, I think massive positives because, I mean, I was saying on here and, I did not think Liverpool were going to win this game, not through, being kind of cast down by negativity. I just think you look at the form, you look at the type of football they struggled with, the fact that Sunderland play that football really well. Going to the Stadium of Light where they hadn't lost a home game all season so far. The atmosphere was always going to be a big one because it's the champions coming. And then you throw in kind of the weather as well. And I was just looking at it kick off and thinking, this is going to be really, really tough. And so for Liverpool to, not only win and, they didn't sneak it, they completely deserved to win. In terms of what they produced in the level of performance, I always say kind of if you can generate around 2 expected goals and keep your opponent to around half an expected goal, that's a really good way to get yourself to win football games. And Liverpool did that. And like I say, I did not expect it, did not see it coming. So I think, you don't want to go over the top and nobody's saying, oh, this means Liverpool are back. They're going to steamroller everyone and go and win the league now. But you can also say when it was a very, very good performance and one that deserved to win in particularly, like, possibly very, very tough circumstances. So, huge credit to them. It was a really good win, an unexpected win, and a good performance to boot.
Yeah, winning ugly is something we've not really done at all this season. So it's good to have that in the mix as well. And it's one of those games. It wasn't a classic, but overall, we were definitely the better team in the first half. Didn't create too much, to be honest, but definitely the better team. In the second, it opened up and the conditions and the result played a part in that. But fair to say we probably edged both halves, edged maybe than dominated.
Yeah, I think they kind of just controlled Sunderland, really. I think outside the first 20 minutes, kind of Sunderland beat the press a few times, but didn't really make anything of it. But then I think kind of after that, really, Liverpool just controlled it as best you can in sort of those types of games. I can't remember too many moments where you're really worried about what Sunderland were doing or feeling like, oh, they're building pressure here or anything. I think Liverpool dominated possession, albeit you could say Sunderland would allow them to do that. But, Sunderland was struggling to kind of put pressure on Liverpool, and Liverpool were getting the ball into promising areas. They were hitting the post. They were creating chances that they missed. And I think all that's kind of reflected in those numbers that you can see there in terms of the amount of shots they get. Obviously, shots on target, only 3, to Sunderland's 2 there. That doesn't look great. But one thing I would say is how many times does Sunderland defend so deep in the box? They're getting blocks in, so it can't even get through to the keeper. So, a lot of those would have been shots on target, but effectively were saved by a defender rather than the goalkeeper. And that's a product of Sunderland defending so deep. So, as I say, I just thought there was, a lot of positives. I think it's just the kind of performance you want to see from a side when they go there, really, which is, being able to cope with every long ball, when you win the ball and you win your individual battles, to then be able to play your football. And Liverpool did a lot of that. They didn't get the goal from open play, but I thought they created enough from open play to win it. And then they nick it from a set piece. So, it's something that Manchester City didn't win there. Arsenal didn't win there. It's a good indicator. And Liverpool won there and then deserved to. So that's a good indicator. It's a good performance and a good outcome as well.
Yeah, I'd agree with all of that. And in terms of what drove that, it's interesting because we'll talk about who was the official man of the match, but players that really shined. I want to start with the captain. I mean, as Octa put there, the first player to score a goal, 10 headed clearances, or got 11 in the end, and win 5 or more aerial duels, 8 in a Premier League match in any of the last 5 seasons, a colossus. I mean, he gets the winner. I thought personally he was man of the match, just edges Konate, but he was dominant in this one, wasn't he, Van Dijk?
Yeah, I mean, if you are going to come up against Sunderland playing that sort of football, you need your centre halves to play well, and I thought they were both fantastic. I mean, Van Dijk, I mean, it says there about headed clearances. I think he makes 14 clearances overall.
Yeah,
I mean, that's outrageous. That's an awful lot, and shows how busy he had been and how it could have turned into a difficult moment if a few of those clearances go awry or you don't quite get them clear, and then Sunderland are creating chaos. Because all Sunderland are looking to do in these games, and they've done it to so many sides, which is why they're unbeaten at home. They're trying to create chaos, and Liverpool are trying to control. So the two things are butting up against each other, and the only way you can keep control is by getting your head on everything, is by getting those clearances in, is by being in front of stuff and making sure that the ball, when it drops in the box, you are there to get rid of it. So, Van Dijk was absolutely crucial to that. I keep hearing things about kind of this season with Van Dijk, and I think it's happened in seasons where Liverpool as a whole haven't been as good. There's temptation to say like he's not as good. I know he's 34, and I know at some point he's going to drop off, but I still think he's been brilliant this season. I genuinely do. He made mistakes, say, at Bournemouth, and that very rarely happens. But I think his season overall, I don't really think he has let his standards drop. I think the team around him has been a problem, yes. But I still think Van Dijk is absolutely brilliant. And yeah, I think he showed it again last night. Everything he did in defence was world class. And then, he gets the goal to boot as well, which wins the game. So, a fantastic performance from him, really kind of led as a captain.
And funnily enough, because we should talk about the central defenders, yeah, absolutely. Van Dijk's stats are insane and central to it. But so was this man, Ibou Konate. I thought it was interesting that they're clearly trying to get Brobbery up against Konate because they thought they'd get more joy out of that. And Brobbery's a real unit and a problem for anyone. But I thought Konate was great as well. Almost an old-style prime Ibou performance, this for me.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think Konate's been great over the last few games. I thought Van Dijk was, they concede 2 against Manchester City. I thought Van Dijk was excellent in that game as well. The way he kind of dominated Haaland. Haaland only scores a pen. He couldn't really get much change out of Van Dijk at all. So, but yeah, Konate, fantastic again. He chips in with a few clearances. Then he wins 8 out of 9 duels. I think I might be right in saying overall. And he just won everything. And Brobby was giving him, he could have given him nightmares, really, because he is such a handful. But I thought Konate just marshaled him brilliantly. And that's a player who has given a lot of centre-halves a really, really difficult time. You see that moment where you think he's kind of possibly giving away a penalty where there's the shirt pulling going on and all that. And you see what Brobby's doing. He's really clever, isn't he? He's grabbing Konate's shirt, making it look like it's the other way around. All that's going on. So, he's a bit of a master of the dark arts as well. So the way Konate dealt with him, fantastic. I think his form's been very good over the last few games as well. So, the pair of them, just a brilliant centre-half pair. And you need them in games like this.
They are a brilliant centre-half pair, and we've seen it in recent games, especially last night. You are just thinking then, like, there's no contracts agreed yet, Ibou. Is now the time for Richard Hughes just to have a little word again and maybe bend on both sides, hopefully? It's not going to happen, but,
Yeah, I've been consistent on this. I would love to see Konate stay. I think even when he's had an up and down season, there's no doubt about it, albeit I think we're seeing there were potentially reasons behind that for his form in the early part of the season. But even then, I don't think I personally wavered on the fact that I think it would be good to keep hold of him because, for the sake of continuity for starters, but also because he's a brilliant centre-half who is coming towards his peak now. And, it's not been his best season by any stretch, but he's had a lot of very good seasons at Liverpool. So I would love to see him stay. I don't have a lot of faith that that's going to happen now because we're so late in the day. You can't completely rule it out just yet, but yeah, I don't have a lot of faith that that's going to happen. But yeah, I would love it if Liverpool were able to keep hold of him because I think he's shown lately just how good he is again.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Expectation and hope are different things there. And this was the official sponsors man of the match. It gets given to Florian Wirtz. And I don't almost want to do him down in any way because I thought he was the real standout attacking player. And I could understand maybe why they've leaned towards that. Just, it almost felt, aside from a set piece, if it was going to be anyone, it was going to be him and a bit of moment of magic, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was magic. And again, we're talking about a game where Liverpool don't get an open play goal. But I just thought he was brilliant. He was, I saw a Sunderland fan had posted on X that he was the best player he's seen at the Stadium of Light this season, which is some praise really. So, and he was that good. I think just everything he did with class. He just seemed to, the first touch was always there. The weight of the pass to others. I thought he was fantastic, really. And he's just going from strength to strength now. He really has just got a grip of this league, hasn't he? And he knows exactly what's needed. He's unlucky not to score again when he hits the post, when he gets that shot away again. That thing we've spoken about before, gets his shot away quicker than he would have in August, and it's just really, really helpful. But that's natural. He's just learning as he goes in this league, and so really nice to see him do that. And then like I say, everything about his performance, the touches, the quality. I mean, he's just a player who's going to be massive for Liverpool. I don't doubt it for a second, and he's getting better every week, and really enjoyed watching him again yesterday.
Yeah, I'm not sure he got too much help in this one, but we'll talk about sort of the attacking travails very soon. And set pieces, clean sheets. I mean, we used to despise talking about set pieces because you knew what I was going to ask you. But now, as Lewis Steele said, put there, set piece in 2026 so far, they've scored 8 and they've conceded 2, whereas August last season to New Year, they'd scored 8 and conceded 13, a marked improvement. I mean, we saw it last night. Maybe there's a bit of fortune because it comes off Van Dijk's shoulder. But it just seems, I don't know whether they're smarter, more effective from set pieces because they were utilising that in-swinging tactic. They really thought they'd get joy from it and it came off. But set pieces as a whole just seem better and smarter in recent times as well.
Yeah, it's so hard to kind of, you can get too bogged down in kind of outcomes, and because Aaron Briggs is gone, the set pieces have suddenly got better, and you can make the link between the two. It might just be the case, by the way, that they're getting a bit luckier because sometimes, I think the amount of expected goals versus actual goals conceded from set pieces in the early part of the season was quite freakish, really, and so they were looking that. But what is interesting is they weren't really threatening at all from attacking set pieces previously, or not as much, and certainly not in Premier League games. They were a bit more in Champions League games. So that's why, for me, it was the right decision to make a change there because, albeit they were being a bit unlucky on the defensive side, they weren't being unlucky on the attacking side. They were just being outright poor. And we've definitely seen they're trying new routines now. They're trying that kind of thing where they group around the goalkeeper and they take in-swingers. So they're coming up with new stuff, and these things weren't happening when the set-piece coach was there. And so we've seen improvement there. And then, as I say, might be luck, might be accident, might be design. We're not entirely sure yet. But the defensive output has improved from defensive set pieces. So you've just got to say it was the right call either way, I think, to make the change. As I say, very hard to unpick whether this is sustainable, and they've kind of sorted the problem now completely because it's, like I say, I need to kind of dig into the expected goals and have a real look at that. But I think it was the right call to make the change because I think what they're doing from attacking set pieces has improved definitively. Whether that's the case for defensive, we'll see between now and the end of the season, I guess.
Yeah, still judgment out on that. I don't know if you get a set piece bounce, but we'll take it whatever way. And I suppose the final thing at this is, I don't know, and maybe this is almost being harsh on Liverpool. I don't know whether I expected more from Sunderland. I thought they would pepper our goal and just go long more often and really try and, like you say, cause chaos. They didn't really seem to bring that. I don't know if the weather played a part or what it was, but Liverpool's defenders especially showing more. Sunderland disappointed. Which camp are we putting this in?
Yeah, I think Sunderland were disappointing, but I think you've got to probably say that Liverpool played their part in that. That if you just don't give them a sniff, if there's no chance for like the ball pinballing around in your box, if you're just in control constantly, they're going to struggle to do anything. And especially if you keep them away from your box as well with the high line that Liverpool employ. they just did a brilliant job of that. And, first contacts on long throw-ins, corners, etc., that when Sunderland did attack, they were just there. So it just kind of sucked the life out of them, really. And I think you just got to give credit to Liverpool for that, really.
Yeah, probably is. But whether it's ugly, it's a great result. We will take it all day long. And I suppose moving into the off the field stuff, a bit of it does link to that last night, and it's almost making me sad what I'm going to put on the screen, because many were maybe surprised that Endo starts at right back, but as that says, he won the most duels, 7 on the pitch, made clearances 7, won tackles 2. Got to be honest though, for that good performance, it looks a bad one, and the way Arne Slot was speaking, you think there's potential this is a season ender, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll just have to kind of see on that one, to be honest. It's a real shame because it was a great performance, and I just thought he was so solid down that side. You worried when they started with pace down that flank. Oh, this could be a bit of a torrid time for him because he's not the quickest, but he was good with his timing and everything, in terms of just being in the right place at the right time. And I think he thought he did everything well defensively that he needed to. And it's kind of one of those, really. You just wonder, could Slot, don't want to be overly critical, but could Slot have just got a little bit more use out of him at times this season? Because he's clearly capable. I know he's not, the kind of holding midfielder that Liverpool dream of, and that, they're going to want to play in every game, because he's not as comfortable as a McAllister or a Gravenberch when it comes to having the ball at his feet. But he's a really committed defender. He can just be useful, I think. And, he proved that under Jurgen Klopp. And I just think it was his second Premier League start under Arne Slot. Right? That's crazy, isn't it? And there's been times where you could have justified using him a bit more. So, he's just a really good player and a great pro. It's just a real shame about that injury. Hopefully it turns out it's not as bad as was first feared, but we'll see on that. I think he's undergoing a scan, I think, today. And we'll find out a little bit more. I hope it's not as bad.
Yeah, even just for him, hopefully, because we'll have that World Cup dream with Japan as well. So hopefully that's not affected either at the same time. And I suppose in terms of, because that position seems cursed, doesn't it? Let's be honest, right back. But Joe Gomez came on. It's sounding like Frimpong is on the way back as well. So it might not be absolute disaster, even despite Endo's injury.
Yeah, so hopefully Frimpong not too far away, and as you say, Joe Gomez back is really important. I thought he was great when he came on. By the way, Gomez really composed. Again, we say it every time. It's just he just can't stay fit, but what a player he is when he is fit. So really good to have him back as an option. And they need them there, because that obviously right back is looking very, very thin. It's pretty unbelievable, really, that you've kind of to lose your 2 first choice right backs, to lose Szoboszlai to suspension, to then lose Endo as well to injuries. It's just remarkable, really. And that the injuries have been so concentrated in that position. So but it's good news that it's kind of easing up a little bit. And it'd be really nice to get Frimpong back, but Gomez is a really good start as well.
Yeah, and fingers crossed on every Endo scan. And the other topic, and it kind of links to a recent run of form that people are talking about, is the wide forwards, if we're going to call them that. And I mean, we talked a little bit about wide positions. You and Lewis Steele were talking about it with me yesterday around it's an area Liverpool could target. It's great that Mo Salah has got the joint most Premier League assists now with us, alongside Stevie, and he gets one last night as well. It's just that attacking fluidity since we've gone for 2 wingers. It just seems a bit of a struggle at times. And I don't know if it's like a mix between screaming at Cody Gakpo and just feeling sorry for him at times as well. But the winger positions, they're just not flowing at the moment.
No, and I think if you're looking for mitigation for Slot, you have to say that the wingers and the quality of the performances this season have been a real problem for him. And you say, he's maybe putting them in positions to do more than they are, and it's not happening for them, which has been a real issue, really, in terms of Liverpool's attack. I mean, what's interesting about that is kind of if the wingers were going to be so important, it's kind of strange that they didn't just sign one.
Yeah.
Just because obviously they knew Engamoa, they wanted to use him, and I totally understand why they're kind of being careful with him. But if you knew you had to be careful with him, was there not someone you could have brought it? I don't know. It just seemed strange. It seemed like it's so key to Liverpool's attack still, even despite signing those two central strikers, that they probably should have done something there, really. Because maybe they just did not think Salah's drop off would be so profound, and there has been a drop off. I think we've got to acknowledge that now. I mean, God, I don't ever want to do Mohamed Salah down. What an unbelievable player, like true great of the game. But I think this season we are just seeing a little bit of it catching up to him. What he's done for over years and years and years, and I'm not sure we will see him come back now. I don't think this is a dip in form. I think it's possibly just kind of maybe the end of him at Liverpool, which is fine. That happens to everyone. It's just one of those things. But I think that's what we're seeing. Gakpo's a strange one because, again, where do you put the blame? Do you say the manager should be doing more to get him back into his form? Is it just him? Because the thing is with Salah is you can say, okay, well, he'd probably leave at the end of the season and it's just age and he's just kind of, it's all catching up with him a bit. With Gakpo, he signed a new contract at the end of the at the start of the season. He's still young. You need to get more from him. So is that down to the player? Is that down to the manager? Very hard to say. It's not as easy to write off as Mo Salah, but regardless, they're both a bit of a problem for Liverpool, really, aren't they? And they have been this season. So, you need to get Gakpo back in form somehow. And with Salah, you need to just mitigate for the fact that he's just not quite the player that he maybe once was. But yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, I look at Wirtz's performance yesterday, and I think with a couple of wingers that were a bit more dangerous than what Liverpool had, he would have been even better than he was. So they need that threat, and it's just clearly a position that Liverpool need to look at coming into this summer.
Yeah, pace, someone to link with Wirtz, it is needed so badly. And there's a player that I think we're almost talking about too often in a negative sense, as in like what's happening at the moment. For all we've seen about the lack of legs that we've talked about, the right back situation, Curtis Jones is on the bench again. Endo starts. And I don't know if it's surprise is the wrong word. Maybe I don't know if it is, but I'm not liking probably where this is going. He's just not in the team. He seems to have dropped well down the pecking order. And we've talked into Spurs and Lynx. This just doesn't look like it's going to end well.
No, again, football can surprise you all the time and you can't guarantee anything. But you're in a point now where you kind of would be surprised if Curtis Jones weren't to leave this summer. It just seems to be the mood music and the way it's going. I mean, he hasn't started any of the last 6 games. The interlinks where, Liverpool never entertained it in the sense they weren't going to let him leave mid-season when they have injuries and they need him, obviously. But nobody's kind of said he didn't want to go. Yeah. I'm not hearing anything like that. Nobody's saying, "Oh, it's laughable that he'd even go." And I asked the manager a question in the press conference a couple of maybe it was last week. Do you want him to stay? And he didn't bite on that. Really, he just kind of shot it down as a question rather than saying, "Yeah, I absolutely want him to stay." And yeah, it just seems to be heading in the direction he's going to leave, and I can't believe it's come to this because I think he's a brilliant player, but he's homegrown as well, and like that's important. I think the fact he's a Scouser and you want those in the Liverpool team, and I can't really understand why he's not being used more this season because I think McAllister was okay yesterday, one of his better performances, albeit not near his top standard, but I thought he did a lot of good things. But with his form, I think Curtis Jones should have been in the starting 11 much more frequently this season. So maybe it's frustration over that is kind of pushing him towards the exit door. But again, it's I just think that's so sad, really, because like I say, he's a local lad, but also it causes Liverpool a problem as well because it's like another player going into the summer where we already know probably need a winger at minimum, maybe 2. They're probably going to have to. There's other players who they're going to have to replace that we know. Robertson will probably leave. Konate at the moment is going to leave. They've got work to do, really. And so if that's the case, that they've got all this business to do, to add to it with a player who you would have thought is nailed on to play his entire career at Liverpool and has expressed that as his desire not too long ago. It's not just sad, but it causes him a bit of a problem. So, I'm a bit gutted about that, but that seems to be the way that it's going, really. There's not a lot you can do about it.
No, it does feel like it's going to be one to sort of brace yourself for this. I suppose one of the umbrages I'd take with it, and I know you're always saying like this, right? Never sort of hyper-analyze everything the manager said, but the manager's repeatedly talked about a small squad. That's been something that's left the manager's lips for many, many months. And yet Curtis Jones, who's ready and raring, seemed perfect for the game, and I thought was really good when he came on last night as well, isn't getting used. Isn't that going to be like, well, how does that tally on a slot?
Yeah, and maybe we see him at the weekend, by the way. Maybe he'll start that game. I hope so. I was like watching him play for starters, but it's it's just, it does seem strange. And one thing I think Slot has got to prove, and I don't think he has proven this season. I remember having a conversation with someone at Liverpool before this season even kicked off, talking about rotation, and that's something that Slot maybe needs to add a string to his bow. And they kind of agreed that was an area we maybe need to see where he'll use his squad a bit more. I don't really think we've seen that this season, to be honest. No. And I think it's something he desperately does need to get better at, because, we've seen a bit of rotation at left back. Maybe he's been decent there. Robertson dipped in and out, and that, he's judged that quite well, I think, generally speaking. But otherwise, kind of not too much, really. I mean, and certainly not recently with Curtis Jones. Doesn't seem to be dipping him in and out. And obviously, Curtis, I don't know. You don't want to read into too much and speculate too much, but you'd suggest there's maybe frustration over the amount of minutes that he's getting there is kind of pushing this. I just think it's an area that the manager needs to get better at, is keeping the people on the fringes a little bit happier by judging the rotation a touch better. Obviously, that will help avoid injuries as well when Liverpool have got a hectic schedule. It's an area where, you could argue that it maybe even cost Liverpool a shot at the Champions League last season, that they kind of got to a certain point of the season and were a bit gassed out, really. So, and also, like I say, in terms of keeping a big squad, you have to be able to involve them all. And, Endo's another good example, could have played a little bit more at times. You're not saying he has to start every week, but just a little bit more than he had. So that's kind of a little bit of a question mark. And that's why, you can see that Curtis ended up in this situation where we look like we're just getting close to maybe him going in the summer, which is not great. I don't think.
No, it isn't great, but it's what's probably right to expect, people. And tell me you're a Liverpool player without telling me you're yet a Liverpool player. Jeremy Jacquet now has a serious shoulder injury, as we know. So there's talk. I mean, that's former Rennes head coach. They've sat their head coach there, but I mean, no news that he won't be available for the start of next season. You think Liverpool would just push to get that done, surely, as soon as possible?
Yeah, I can't see why that. We've seen shoulder injuries. Mo Salah, for example, against Real Madrid in the Champions League. If that's on the more sort of serious side of shoulder injuries. So I don't think it's only February now. It's a long time till pre-season, so don't really have any fears that he won't be available for that. It's a shame for him as a young player to miss some football. It's all helpful for his development. But I don't think it will impact him in a Liverpool sense. So he should be fully fit for them.
Fingers crossed on that one. And probably a couple of things, a couple of right backs or full backs to talk about, because that's a position. It's not so much it's Calvin Ramsey. I'm not sure people are saying Calvin Ramsey is ever going to be a starter or believe in that for 1 second. But Arne Slot's quotes around protecting players, saying if you don't win a game, the players who aren't playing become the best players in the squad. I just want to protect all my players. I've chosen other players till now, and I will do the same to tomorrow. I think there's maybe, again, a little bit of umbrage with, you've talked about Calvin Ramsey before, and you've labelled him almost as 8th choice right back, I think we're going with now, if we put all the numbers. That doesn't really scream to protecting and the things he said, does it, a little bit?
No, like I totally agree with the decision not to play him. By the way, I think it would be you can't throw him in. I don't think he's there in terms of playing for Liverpool. He's not probably of that level. So I'm absolutely fine with that. By the way, I think he's right. But I said it before. I just think it's such an easy one to say, to just build him up as a player. There's nothing to lose by doing it, by saying he's he's a great young talent. We don't know if his fitness is quite there to play a certain amount of minutes, but if we need him, we know we can rely on him.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm urging the manager here to lie to us as journalists, which is probably quite foolish in terms of what that means for me. But honestly, it's just so there's no downside from his perspective to do that, really. I don't think it's going to build unbelievable pressure to have to throw him in then. And the fact is, there could be a point at which you just might need him in a cup game or whatever, the FA Cup game coming up. If he can take 20 minutes at the end of that or something like that, that's helpful to protect all the other players you've got. So why not just give him a confidence boost? Really easy to do. And as I say, there's no downside really to doing it. So that's one area I think, it could probably just be a bit more savvy, really. Just park that honesty that he lives by and he absolutely swears by. And just, be a bit more savvy with that one.
Could be, would definitely help. And then a few have asked about this. I think the answer will be short, but it's worth bringing it up. Young Lucas Stevenson, he's on loan at Dundee. And actually, speaking to Dundee United fans, they're saying aggressive, like him a lot. And just, look at his photo for Player of the Month. He couldn't look any more the archetypal Scouser there, could he? Do you think there's any sort of future for Lucas Stevenson? Unlikely to be a recall long-term at Anfield at all?
He's 22 now. He's doing well in that league, but it is a big step up. He has looked bright in pre-season when he's got chances for Liverpool, but it's very, very hard to judge whether kind of, where they are up to in terms of that level. And I think if he was a little bit closer, he maybe would have got a loan that was kind of maybe around Championship or something like that. He's not someone I get spoken to about, and people say that, he's the next cab off the rank, he's gonna make it at Liverpool. He's not necessarily viewed in that sense. You cannot rule anything out, because you think about the amount of games that Nat Phillips ended up playing out of nowhere, and nobody at Liverpool internally expected that at all. It just kind of happened. So you can't completely rule it out. But he's not being spoken about in those terms, I'd say.
Fair enough. Yeah, seems unlikely with that. And then it does feel a million miles away, but there's a few transfer links still coming up. There's various reports that, and I'm probably going to butcher his name, but I think it's pronounced Urenki, the African midfielder in the Danish league. Liverpool have been linked with a move for there. And scouts apparently watching Jan Diomande for Red Bull Leipzig as well. Heard anything on those two players or any expectations around those?
Yeah, so definitely Diomande is being watched really closely. So, that's not to guarantee that we'll go for him, but he's definitely a player that is on Liverpool's radar, because he's on the radar of a lot of clubs. So we can guarantee that he's definitely being watched. And obviously the wing position is something Liverpool are eyeing now. I'd be surprised if this next summer passes without a winger being added. So he's on that radar, but of course it's kind of up to him now to kind of keep the level going, to keep showing that he's kind of ready to make that jump. What you would have said is kind of a few years ago, you'd say, he's only 19 now. He's not got very many games behind him at all. Not a lot of, not a big record of production. But Liverpool, as I wrote after the Jacquet one, they're kind of having to move earlier now because everybody else is moving earlier. So, I think previously I would have said that, he's not ready now for Liverpool to spend big money on him. But very hard to predict that these days, because I think the whole kind of approach really has changed a little bit. And so, like I say, they're willing to go a little bit earlier. But as I know, like I say, at the moment, watching him, keeping an eye on him, scouting him, definitely. Whether it goes beyond that, we'll have to see. And the other lad, not really heard the name or anything about him, really, to be honest. Is it Norgeland? Yeah,
absolutely. That's the
team. Again, that's a bigger jump than from the German league. Yeah. So, whether they would go in on a 20-year-old who's there, they could see him as a developmental option, maybe. But I haven't personally heard anything about him. Diomande, yes, 100% being watched. Urenki, no, I've not personally heard any kind of links to him. But that's not to say that there's nothing in it.
Yeah, almost feels like one of those players we need the multi-club model to add him to that. But we'll
Yeah.
see if anything develops for that one. And this weekend, I'm struggling a bit as to how to build this. I can be honest myself, I'm kind of swithering. It's an FA Cup game. It's the fourth round. It's Brighton. Looking where Liverpool are right now, and we know what Arne Slot did for the Carabao Cup. And I don't want to say you wrote it off, but the lineup told us everything we needed to know. Where do you think this is sitting for Liverpool right now in terms of it's the trophy, you've got the best chance, or like, now we've got to get those Champions League spots, like whatever?
No, I think he's going to go strong again. I think he's kind of signalled his intention in the last round is that he's going to name as strong a side as he can. I think there will be some rotation, maybe a chance, like I say, for Curtis to come in to, he made the Robertson change at the weekend, so maybe you see Kirk come back in. But I think it's going to be a strong side because I think he'll feel like, it's a tough enough game, but he'll feel like because they're not in the League Cup, that was his kind of reasoning is that, because you didn't have that as a sideline that he had to kind of throw the FA Cup last season. Well, he's kind of thrown the League Cup this time. I think there's a real opportunity to keep going strong in the FA Cup because you've only got, this and the Champions League and the Premier League now as the three competitions. He will feel that they can manage that. I think he's going to go maybe a couple of changes in there, but I think it's going to be a strong 11.
Yeah, I'm intrigued with this. I suppose a couple of questions with that strong 11. Probably two to really point to, I think, because they do feel it's worth asking. Rio and Gamoa getting a chance in this, and do you risk Dominic Szoboszlai in this, or do you give him another week off, as it were?
No, I think Szoboszlai comes straight back in. I don't see any reason why not. Engamoa's one is an interesting one because I'm saying, I think he'll go strong, but I think they think it's strong and they can go with Engamoa in this. It's a home game cup. He's around the first team squad. These are the kind of games that you use him in. So I really hope they do because I want to get more of kind of eyes on him. I like watching him. He's exciting. And it's really good experience for him. And obviously we've not seen loads of him. I would like to see Engamoa in, but I think otherwise, you might get the odd change there. Say maybe Engamoa coming in, maybe kind of Kirkes coming in for Robertson, Szoboszlai back into the midfield. Maybe Curtis gets a shout. But I really do think it's going to be a pretty strong Liverpool 11.
And it was one I wanted to ask you about because Robertson comes back in. I wouldn't say it's a massive surprise, but a lot of people thinking Kirkes is in great form. Is it still sort of Kirkes 1, Robbo 2 for you, or does last night change anything?
No, I think you got to stick with Kirkes because I think he's really kind of coming to the fore now, isn't he? And he is the future there. So Robertson is in that backup role, but I don't, it really is for me is Kirkes as number one, and I think he's justified that with his performances recently. I think he's been very, very good. But it was good, really, really good to see Robertson come back in and put in the performance he did. I thought he was absolutely spot on yesterday.
Really was. And I mean, this is strange. I didn't think I'd be showing you a table that looks like this on the screen because we have to be honest, before this we thought it could get worse and the gap could be bigger. But when you look at that, only 3 points, to say only, to fourth place and only 2 points to fifth place as well. It looks a lot better than we thought at the start of the week.
Yeah, 100%. You kind of feared with, United going away to West Ham, who they've improved a little recently, but they're generally quite, struggling. They're down there. Chelsea having Leeds at home, who again they've improved recently, but they're lower down the table. You just thought that was games that they were going to win, and then Liverpool going to Sunderland, who have been flying this season. You kind of feared that was the sort of game that Liverpool weren't capable of winning, and instead, you got drop points from both of those, and then Liverpool get a win themselves, and of course, being within 2 points of Chelsea and 3 points of United now, feels like they win with a shout still of getting in that top 4, top 5. So it kind of shows you how crazy the season is that Liverpool have won 7 in 21 games now, and they're still in with a shout of this. Obviously, it was helpful that they had a really good start in terms of picking up points as well. But just a crazy league, really. But the job for Liverpool, as I say, is we can't probably go too over the top about what we saw yesterday, but the job is just to do that consistently now. Can they keep putting in good underlying performance and continue in a positive vein, put 3 or 4 wins together, because if they do that, they'll be right back up there. And I mean, you look at it, they've got a real opportunity to do that next, because the league games that are coming up, is it West Ham, Wolves, and someone else who's down there as well. They've got fixtures that are definitely winnable. Forest, of course, Forest, West Ham, and Wolves. That's 3 sides who are right down there. So real big opportunity. But of course, we know what Liverpool have been like this season. We know that you can't really kind of rely on them just yet. So we'll see how those goes. But it's a real chance to get themselves back in that top 4, top 5.
Yeah, especially because we're about to hit the business end of the season. And I know sometimes we talk about wider football as well. Liverpool are completely bucking the trend, as in we're the only one not sacking our manager when things have got tough, because Spurs go with Thomas Frank's gone. Last night, Sean Dyche went, didn't he, as well, that Marinakis loves a sack. It seems to live for it a little bit. But we're definitely booking the Premier League very much. We're in that. Owners seem to be in the panicking stages now, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, it shows you as well how the madness of this season, in the sense that, like, nobody's happy. I think we've spoken about this before. Like, nobody feels like they're playing well. Nobody is consistently picking up points outside of maybe Arsenal and Man City. It just feels and Villa as well. Sorry, and everybody else kind of below them seems like they're not particularly happy. And I mean, Villa got booed off not too long ago as well, and they're in the title race. So it just kind of shows you really how mad it all is. And people are sacking managers, whether that is the solution or there's something to be said about it's just a kind of Premier League wide issue with no being able to be consistent because the teams are so close now. I'm not sure what the kind of solution or the reason behind it all is, but I with Forest, you kind of think, well, they're in a situation where they could genuinely end up they are in a relegation battle. Tottenham could get sucked into that. It's fascinating down there, but as you say, Liverpool, they're sticking with Slot. I've said before, I think it's the right call. He won the league, so you just kind of, once he got the other side of PSV, where I think he could have got sacked in that week, once he did get past that, you just kind of stick with him and see what happens, and at the end of the season, make your call. I think that's the right decision, come what may, really. But it's very different to the approach that everyone else is taking, and it will work for some. It's worked for United, I think, up to now. I think it has for Chelsea, but it might not work for others. And maybe we'll see a downturn from United now. Maybe see a downturn for Chelsea. It's very, very hard to predict. But an awful lot of sackings going on at the moment.
Yeah, he's keeping the headline writers busy. And for the final question I wanted to ask, so quite a few actually have taken your clip that we put out from yesterday around, use that thing that the rest of this season is a trial, Arne Slot's on trial almost for that. And quite a few have said that February, because you mentioned some of the fixtures there, the FA Cup, Forest away, West Ham at home. He's got to end with positives probably in all 3 of those. Put it this way, if all 3 of those are negative, it's hard to see anything else, isn't it?
Yeah, because I mean that'll be poor results against, even if you take the cup out of the equation, but obviously to lose and not have a chance of that trophy would be a blow. And then it's 3 sides who are down in the relegation area, to not get positive results from them would be very, very damning, I think. So I think you've got to say, it's a key period for him. But the whole thing is, I think, like I said, consistently really has to get good outcomes and good performances in between now and the end of the season. And if he does that, then he gives himself every chance, I think, of saying, right, okay, give me a new contract, let's go again, let's sort this out, we can have a better season next season. But just got to kind of build on yesterday, build on all the positives that there have been some this season, get rid of all the negatives, and try and get some consistency between now and then. And if they do that, could finish in the top 4, top 5. And again, that boosts things massively as well in terms of helping him keep his job. So, let's see how it goes, really. And it's kind of funny, really, because it's like, if you offer any kind of criticism or you say that, it's like I get so much stick like yesterday for saying positive things about how Liverpool played, but like you're allowed to kind of do that. I don't know why everyone thinks it has to be like, oh, I said I offered a criticism and therefore I absolutely hate Arne Slot and I think he should be sacked and fraud. And if they play well, I've got to say that they actually didn't play well, and I've got to say that it wasn't a good result or performance against Sunderland. You're allowed to say this was a bad performance, this was a good performance, this is why. And, that's not flip-flopping on your opinion. My opinion is solid on this, is that, and I've said it to you so many times, give him to the end of the season. Now, like I say, once you got the other side of PSV, give him to the end of the season. Let's see what happens. And then you make your judgment then with all the evidence you'll have behind you. That's, and so, if that's your stance, and that is my stance, is like, you can kind of say this performance was good, this performance was bad. That won't help him. This will help him.
Right.
And that's the way to do it. I think you don't have to be, people are tying themselves in knots to be like, oh, I'm in the slot out camp now, so I have to say the Sunderland performance was rubbish. It's like, you don't have to do that. You can say it was a good, it's not out of this world, but it was a really good gritty performance to earn a win at a ground that nobody else has won at. And if they get turned over, by the way, at Brighton, no, it's not at Brighton, at Anfield, but if you turned over by Brighton, you can say that was rubbish. You don't have to say it was good if you were slot in. So, it doesn't have to be this kind of entrenched, and you don't have to put yourself in a camp whereby you can't say anything positive or you can't say anything negative. Why not just be somewhere in the middle and see what happens? Because I'm telling you now, that's what FSG are doing. That's what Richard Hughes is doing. They're seeing how this whole thing plays out. So give yourself the grace. You don't have to make your decision now. You can wait till the end of the season. It's fine. And you can praise and you can criticize, and that's fine.
And I like, actually, because I got one more now you've said that. I mean, I hope it's right. I hope, obviously, we get the Champions League and all that. And, of course, it ends on a positive note. That's what we all want, without doubt. However, will there be a slight annoyance that yesterday Lewis Steele was very positive about us getting the Champions League and we were a bit wary? Like, there will be a little bit of annoyance if he's right on a few things, won't there?
Oh yeah, I'll be absolutely gutted, and I won't give him any credit whatsoever. But yeah, no, he said that, and you look at the picture now. One match week can really swing things. Of course, that's true in the opposite direction, but we see what happens. But it's the fact they're in with a chance is kind of madness, and I think you looked at the form coming into yesterday, as we said, it's not one that you thought they would go away and get that win and perform as convincingly as they did. So. Football's full of surprises, and maybe have a really surprising finish to this season. They're still in the Champions League, by the way. It's worth mentioning. So, all these things can happen, which is why I think, we'll say this over and over. You don't have to nail your colours to the mast now. Nah. You don't have to be in or out. You don't have to pretend it's bad when it's good and it's good when it's bad. It's absolutely fine to kind of sit on the fence and just see what happens and say, this was good and this was bad as these things happen, and then, not just to kind of, so you're not proven wrong, but just because this is life. It's nuanced. It's difficult to predict. It's football is crazy, and it throws up surprises all the time. So you better wait until you've got so much more evidence to make a really firm judgment on these things. And, that Liverpool are giving everybody the good grace to have that time to make that judgment. So let's see what happens.
We'll see what happens. We'll put no truck against Lewis Steele's opinion whatsoever. But maybe we've been doing this wrong all along, people. Here's to being pleasantly surprised. So let's predict a Brighton 6-0 victory at the weekend and see what turns up as a surprise then. But for answering all the questions, for going in depth, for looking at everything, as ever, David, it is massively appreciated.
No, thank you very much for having me.
And ladies and gents, that was another Media Matters for Anfield.